Welcome to the first ever episode of the Paul Gray Podcast. We're coming to you from Wichita, Kansas, and some of the topics we're going to talk about is obviously construction, building, real estate, but entrepreneurship, families, business in general, things going on in the community, all with the intention of helping you understand us better as well as our industries in the city of Wichita. Our goal is to make everybody's life better, and we believe that through entrepreneurship and embracing your community, that life can be the fullest it could ever be for you. So my first guest today is a very special guest. You know, I meet lots of people in this world, and my guest today is just a beautiful woman. She's got great character, good mother. I heard she's a very good wife, and she has a lot of her own stories to tell. So I'll start by introducing my wife, Adriana Gray.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being with us today for this
thanks
first time.
Thanks for inviting me, being your first guest.
Exactly. The most important guest. So just look at how much everybody else has to live up to. So
what can I say?
It's going to be challenging. But, this is exciting. I get my forum to talk as much as I want, and no one can tell me to be quiet. And eventually we'll run out of electricity, or the sun will burn out, or if it'll just turn the mic off. But until then, we're going to have a lot of fun. As we mentioned, just give you a little introduction about myself is, I grew up in the construction business, building houses with my parents. And then in my early 20s, I got into politics. I was on the Wichita City Council. I did that for 8 years, capping that off as vice mayor 1 year. And then I was about 30, I started my own company, which is called Paul Gray Homes. It happened to be in 2008 when the housing market was horrible. And, no one wanted to become a builder. Everybody wanted to stop being builders. And I thought it'd be a great idea to do the opposite. So we started building homes. And at that time, to survive, we also got in the commercial construction business. And we had friends in the business that had real estate properties. And thankfully, they were able to give us little jobs here and there, build a couple offices, remodel my bathroom. And then just through grinding for several years, things started to improve and started to grow. And Adriana happened to be with me during this time to see all of this taking place. I remember when I built my very first house, she got to see it. Mm-hmm. It was right around the time that we met. And very exciting. And so to see that we came from that, and then we've grown into having a pretty good sized home building company, the commercial company. We do work in Wichita and around the Midwest, and done jobs as far away as North Carolina, Tennessee, several jobs in upstate New York. So we've worked pretty much all over the U.S. I think we've been in about 41 states now. And then continuing the evolution of the home building business, we've gotten into both commercial and residential real estate. We have investment portfolios where we have commercial buildings, office, retail, warehouses, restaurants. And then in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of growth in multifamily. So during that time, we've built 70 or so duplexes. And we're working on more projects now, more townhome configurations, some bigger buildings, 4plexes, 6plexes, 8plexes. I see the potential that there'll be an evolution to get into the apartment space at some time. But also we just love business and entrepreneurship and love helping people, mentoring people. And so we've invested in some companies. We're partners in some restaurants. We recently started a home health care company with some people who had a lot of experience in that business. And we're also in the land development business. So a lot of different things. One of the things, I mentioned the residential real estate. My wife, Adriana, is our property manager. And so...
having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. That's great to have her on board. She's always wanted to do stuff in the companies with us, but we have 3 children at home.
Yeah.
And we had to wait till Remington was old enough to go to school and you had some more time on your hands.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of been a nice adventure, I guess. Growing up in a family where family came first, I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but, as the kids started growing, and I just, thought, why not get involved in this as well? So just recently, as you said, I started managing some of those properties, and it's been a lot of fun because I get to see the behind the scenes of what you do as well, and not just, the stories that you come home and tell me on a day to day. So
yeah, it's very different for me because it's almost like a role reversal. Because so often, I'm a workaholic. I still work probably 60 hours a week. I've backed that down from about 70. But I'm coming home and I'm on the phone and I'm texting and emailing and checking my phone all the time. And it would irritate you so much. You're like, come on, pay attention to us, And as I got better at being a husband, I paid more attention and started having better boundaries. And now I come home and guess who's on the phone all the time?
I know. It's crazy because it used to drive me insane. And now it's like, now I get to see what, all those times that you were always like, I got to get this done. I got to take care of this. And now it's me doing that. But
I should have started this 10 years ago then. It's like, dang it, all of those years.
all those times that we would have arguments about, please. It's now something that I can understand because I, get to see it firsthand. So
the best part of it is all of the years you got to raise our kids and see, Adriana's background and my background are incredibly different. One of the things to think about is, if there's something that could be similar or different, we would commonly be on the different side of things. Our values are the same, and that's why it works for us, but our backgrounds are very different. She came from, like you said, the background where you were very family-based, and I came from the background where my parents were entrepreneurs, and they worked all the time. I mean, God, there'd be, the Pizza Hut was our best friend, the delivery driver, for years when we would sit back and they'd bring dinner every night because my parents would be working, and they worked in the office in our house. Mm-hmm. But it was a big house, and they were on the other end of it and doing their work, and so it's interesting to see those. So those dynamics changed. So when we first got together and first started having children, I was of the mindset that I wanted my partner to work, mm-hmm. And then but it was a conflict for you. It's not what you wanted, and it was one of many agreements where you won. And
I'm glad I did.
I yielded, and I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Because people often are like, well, does your wife work? I'm like, God, no. It's like if she threatens to go back to work when we get in fights and arguments, it's like I've relied on you so much to be able to manage that portion of our life so I can be over here focusing on the business side of life. And now that, Reme's in school, you're still very much you're still very much mom, but you're definitely carving out some hours to help us.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's very important, and it always has been, that part of parenting. I knew I always wanted to be the one raising my kids and not necessarily have, someone else in charge of them all the time. And there's nothing wrong with being a mom that wants to work, because I do have friends that sit back and tell me there's no way I could be a stay-at-home mom. It's a really hard job. It's, I wouldn't say it's a job, but it's the most important job for me. Making sure that our kids are good members of society, and just, making sure that they know that I am going to be there when they need something. I love the fact that the kids know if they have a field trip, mom is going to be there. If there's a parent that needs to, it's needed at school for volunteering, mom's going to be there. And I grew up in that environment, and I knew that that was something that I wanted the kids to experience as well. And not to mention, I never wanted to miss all the, milestones that they had in life, their first walk, their first tooth, all of those things that you eventually miss out if you're not around. And again, I have to say there's nothing wrong with wanting to work or having to work, because I'm not a lot of people have that option of being able to stay at home, and I'm thankful. And I actually always tell you, thank you for, you know, allowing this to be the case in our case, our family, you know, making sure that I can be home, because not everybody has that opportunity. But again, it was just something that I knew from day one. I wanted to be the one around the kids, raising the kids, making sure that they had what they needed. And, you know, now that all of the kids go to school full time, I can focus on other areas. But at the end of the day, I still consider being a stay-at-home mom the most important job I have.
That's great. And I'm glad it worked out for us this way. You know, I'd like to say that's the only argument I ever lost with you.
Yeah, I know it was hard for you because you came from an environment where, you know, working was important, which again, you know, it is. I mean, and a lot of families don't have that. So
yeah, I mean, even now, both my parents work with me, and so, which is interesting because I grew up working for my parents as my first job and career. I mean, gosh, I worked for my parents for probably 15 years, and then the last couple, I've had the opportunity to work side by side with both my parents as well, which is in a weird way very family orientated. So
you work with the family.
Exactly. So I was born and raised in Wichita, and I've never been gone longer than 10 days. You know, people are like, 10 days, it's very exact. I'm like, well, I've had a couple really fun trips, you know, out of the country. I've been to China and Brazil and things like that. Other than that, I'd never been gone. I didn't go to school out of town. I didn't go off to KU or K-State.
Right.
So that's my background here. But your background is not the same. So
No.
You want to tell everybody a little bit about where you're from and what brought you here?
So I am from a border town called Juarez, Mexico.
For all of us non-Spanish speaking people, we pronounce it Juarez, but we don't pronounce it right.
So a border town, I would say 2 to 3 million population combined with El Paso, Texas, which is, you know, the border next to it. But I grew up in that area, way different than Wichita. I mean, you're talking about, you know, the population when I moved to Wichita 20 years ago was like 400,000, you know. So I was born, raised there. I say raised, but I've been in Wichita longer than I ever was there.
And you were how old when you moved here?
I was 13 years old when I moved here. I started high school in Wichita, at Wichita, or East High School, I should say. So I graduated from East in 2005. And, I mean, moving is hard, but moving as a teenager is even harder because not only you don't have any friends, but you're moving to a different country, which is way different. And granted, I grew up, again, in that border town, which, you know, when people ask me, did you ever visit the U.S. before you came to Wichita? I did all the time because El Paso, Texas is right there. So I have family that lives in El Paso, Texas. And so I just go back and forth, you know, or I would go back and forth to see my aunts and uncles or whatever. So yeah, I was exposed to that. It's funny because being from that area, I celebrated the Mexican holidays and then I celebrated the U.S. holidays. You know, we would go to El Paso to my aunts to do 4th of July fireworks. And then, you know, go back to Mexico to, you know, celebrate other things, or the people that live in El Paso go to, you know, across the border to eat the best Mexican food because it's just right there. So I grew up in that area. But I moved here when I was about 13 years old. My grandmother used to live here way before I moved here. And she was very, very sick. She was living with my aunt at the time. And my mom, being, again, from a very family-oriented, you know, environment, she thought it was the best to move here temporarily. That was her excuse. It's just going to be temporary. Your
mom was prophetic.
Yeah.
She knew that you were going to meet me, and so that's why she came.
So she, you know, she said one day, we're going to move there because my mom is very sick and I need to help my sister take care of your grandmother. And We came to visit, I think it was a summer, went back to Mexico for like a month, and then next thing we know, we're packing all of our stuff, and then we're moving here. And I'm starting school at East High School.
Yep. Does your mom and sister still live here?
Yeah, so my mom and my sister live here. They've always been here, obviously. But when people ask me, how do you feel living now in, Wichita, I always say this is the best place to raise a family. Again, coming from a super big town, as a teenager, when I moved here, I didn't like it because Wichita had 1, 2, malls. They never had, the big stuff that big cities have, the concerts, all the stores, all the restaurants and all that stuff. We didn't have it here, but now that I have a family, I rather raise a family here in Wichita than El Paso, Juarez area, because I could not imagine raising a family in a place that has a 2 million population,
Yeah, one of the things that stand out to me is, at least here we only have to drive 15, 20 minutes to get anywhere. Over there, it's like
an hour.
An hour. It takes forever to get wherever you want. And so, but our friend George often says this, that if you can't find what you need on Rock Road, you don't need it. So, let's shout out to George for giving us some great things on Rock Road and Bradley Fair. But, so your family's still here. Obviously, they're not going anywhere now because we wouldn't let them. I mean, we're holding them captive.
Pretty much.
We've got little niece and little nephew, and it's great having them around. I think, just last night, our little nephew was staying at our house last night, which gives our kids a chance, an excuse to stay up extra late, make more of a mess, raid the pantry with all the snacks. So, the kids are out of school for the summer. So what keeps you busy? Obviously, we know you're doing multifamily property management. You're taking care of all these duplexes we're building. But what do you do with all the kids? How does that keep you?
Every single one of our kids plays, every activity, I feel like. Remy is doing golf and swimming and baseball this summer. Sebastian is doing golf and, weights and agility at Cape Ann, and Allie's doing tennis and weights and agility. So, during the day, we start our morning with just driving around, dropping everybody off, picking them up. And in between that, I have to still manage the properties.
Yeah, and then take care of her home.
Yeah, take care of the house. So, but yeah, I mean, it's honestly, as much as it sounds like it's a lot, and it is a lot, I enjoy it because I don't know if you remember, but when COVID happened and we had nothing going on because they canceled everything, I feel like I'm missing something. Like I'm not driving anywhere, to drop off somebody, and it was nice, but it was not the lifestyle that I was used to, and I feel like part of me was missing something. So.
Yeah, thank God we were considered an essential industry, and I didn't have to stay home because there's no way I could have just stayed home for a month or two, and that would not have been safe for anybody. I do want to mention we also have an older kid. Our oldest is Cohen, and he's getting ready to turn 19 in a couple weeks, and he's following in the family footsteps and going into the construction business, working for Dad. He works on one of our carpentry crews and going to school as well. So I want to make sure we note that, big family with 4 kids leads to lots of responsibilities for everybody.
But I like it that way. I mean, I grew up with just one sister, and so that to me was something that I knew I wanted to, provide for my kids. I wanted them to have more than one sibling, let's put it this way, just because I grew up with, my best friend had 4 or 5 siblings, and I enjoy the fact that she always had someone with her at school that was part of her family, and I didn't. So part of me was like, I want the kids to have that. So
yeah, just so the audience knows, there's a 7-year difference between you and your sister. That's huge. Our kids aren't close in age, but they're 3, 4, 5 years apart, depending on which kid it is to the next kid. But you know, they're all there for each other. You know, I didn't want a big family, and God told me that I was wrong and that I was going to have a big family anyway. And I see the value of that. I've always been slow to coming around to things.
I mean, just think about the holidays when, you know, we start having grandkids, they're going to come around and the house is going to be full of grandkids and kids and
all
everybody.
All of our kids have to have 4 kids. We're going to have to like write that into our trusts and our wills that like you don't get inheritance if you don't have 4 children each.
Yeah. I want a full house on the, you know,
There
during
you
the
go.
holidays where we have Christmases or whatever. Like we want to have.
I jokingly tell people, you know, it's like we're in the stage where we've got a lot of our friends having babies. My baby brother finally had his first kid at, God, he's, what is he, I think 37, 38, and finally had his first kid a couple months ago. And it's like, I got this baby fever. I see all these cute little kids, and I would want to hold them and like, hey, you drop them off, we'll babysit them. And it's like, I wouldn't mind having another kid, but God, I couldn't imagine starting over. It's like, we haven't had to change diapers for like 3 years. And it's like, I surely don't want to start that again. So it just, the cool thing about me coming from, you know, my past to today's environment where I understand family, I value family more and embrace it more. I'm just making more and more time for my children and making better time for my children. You know, they talk about work-life balance. I think like all things, balance is relative to the people doing it. And for me, work-life balance still has a lot of work. Yeah. But the time that I have with my family is more intentional. You know, we were watching Remy play baseball last night. You know, a couple weeks ago, we were at Sebastian's golf match. And so I try to make those events as much as possible, practice with the kids when I can, which isn't enough, but, you know, making more time for that. And then also trying to teach them the values that I think a lot of parents want to instill good values in their children, their values in their children, but they do it kind of passively. And up until the past few years, I was very passive about it. You know, teach through observation, which is valuable, but I'm being more intentional and trying to like educate them, like, why am I teaching you this? And this is the motivation, and this is the outcome, and use metaphors and use stories. Which is one of the great things about this platform is the opportunity to storytell, to dig into something deeper. You know, we love doing our little spots on social media, and YouTube's great, but this gives us a chance to really dive into those things, and we'll do that in the future. I think there'll be times when in the future, obviously, I'm going to have guests, and I think there'll be times when Adriana may be able to join us with some of those guests. You know, if we have somebody that really hits on things that both of us can be, you know, co-interviewers on some of those situations. So I look forward to that, and, you know, I'm really happy to have you here as our first guest, and I'm more happy to have you as my wife.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
I don't tell you enough how much I appreciate you, but everybody out
You're
there
working on that, and it's, you know, much better.
But I tell everybody else, you know, if only those compliments made their way back to you.
I keep telling you, you just need to tell me that.
Exactly. So next time I tell somebody how much I love and appreciate you, I need to stop and send you a text message to make sure you get that. Well, my next topic is a relationship. You know, how about we each talk about the 3 things we love about one another? And so for me, the 3 most important things I love about you is, 1, your value of family. You know, you brought me around to that. And I understand the importance of it. I always understood the importance of it a different way, in a much more encompassing way. The second is your support for me. I mean, there's never been a time you haven't been there when I needed you. And that is the most valuable thing you can do for me outside of raising our family and being there as my partner, is to support me in the things we do, because it's oftentimes very difficult. And the third thing would be the humanity level. Just your desire to help others, your desire to benefit and make other people's lives better, to be a good friend, to be a good supporter. I mean, it really is kind of like number 2 and 3 are together, except for number 2 is the selfish version of it. Number 3 is what the rest of society gets, and our friends and social group and so forth.
Yeah.
And you're hot.
Well, that's a 4th one. I mean, I agree with you on the humanity part of, I mean, like, that's how I feel about you. You're the type of person that's always willing to help others. I mean, the fact that you are willing to give advice to people that are wanting to start their business, and someone needs something, even if it's 5 minutes, you are willing to provide that. So I have to say in that we do agree. It's interesting because you said family is important for me. For you, it's work and family as well. But I value the fact that you have a really good, work ethic. If it wasn't for that, our kids would not be able to see both sides of the importance of family and work. So I appreciate the fact that you are teaching that to your kids, because, that complements family as well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
You got one more? I'd say that's two. I'm putting you on the spot here.
Can I think about that? I'm kidding.
Okay.
No, there's
you can punt. Obviously, it's not my good looks, and it's surely
that too.
It's definitely not my hair. So
it's just, you are a very persistent person. I was talking to the kids the other day about this because they were something that happened to them, and they felt like, oh, I failed at this, and I'm just going to give up. And I said, your dad, if there's something that you can see from your dad, is the fact that he's very persistent. A lot of the things that you have or we have right now, we would not have that if you were not that persistent. And when you get a no, you turn around and you go somewhere else and then find that yes answer that you need from somebody else. And so that's something that I really appreciate from you.
Well, thank you. We've been together 16 years. Our 11-year anniversary is coming up next month. Obviously, we make mistakes, but what are the things that you think we do right? What are the things that you would give somebody of advice on how to have a good marriage?
I would say the number one thing for me is boundaries. If you don't have boundaries in any relationship, you cannot be successful at that. And what I mean by that is we are not perfect. And for the longest time, it took us, 5, 6, 7 years to figure this out. How do we balance work? How do we balance the kids? All of that stuff, it would not have been possible if we not had boundaries in place to say, okay, this is important for us. We don't miss with this stuff. Family time has to be this time, and all of those things. So I think that's the only way that you can accomplish or have a good relationship with anyone or anything, if you have those boundaries.
And I think that's a great answer. For me, it would be understanding all of the challenges and difficulties that each person goes through, plus you're understanding your own roles and your contribution to things. See, this is what I mean. We're very different. Like, she's the rule maker, I'm the rule breaker.
Yes.
And so
I agree.
It works well because, she's more rigid, I'm more flexible, dynamic, static for all you engineering-minded people, and it takes both of those things to make a bridge work. Bridge can't hold up if it's just static, and you sure don't want to walk across if it's dynamic. And I'll wrap up with this. I was in my Vistage meeting yesterday, and that's a group of business owners and C-suite executives who we get together once a month and we troubleshoot issues within each other's companies, similar to board of directors. But we had a great speaker yesterday, and he talked about the most valuable place in the world is a cemetery. Everybody's lives, aspiration, dreams, so many of them unfulfilled, many of them filled. But when you go up and you look at somebody's tombstone, there's 2 dates. The day that they're born, and unfortunately the day that they die, and we're all going to have to do that. But the entire story of their life is the dash in between. And so the tombstone doesn't tell the story of the dash, but God may give you 1 day or 100 years, and it's up to you to sit back and figure out how to make that dash as beneficial to society and humanity as humanly possible. And that's a journey, like all things. You don't just wake up one day and have an epiphany of all these wonderful things you're going to do and accomplish. It's just an evolution of previous ideas, experiences, concepts, lessons. And I think that's the best part about life is just continue to be better every day. And it's what we try to teach our kids.
Yeah. I mean,
So before I close up, is there anything you'd like to say?
no, I mean, like you said, it is important to have that, I guess, I don't know if Mark would be the right way to say this, but, it's important to show your kids. Like I said, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to be the person that's teaching them, the person that's, there for them. So it's important. It's even more important if you do it with someone that you love and care about, which, I'm glad that we found each other and we complement each other, I feel, in so many ways.
Absolutely. I wish I found you sooner, but you weren't old enough. I had to wait for you to graduate and get out of kindergarten.
Pretty much.
But hey, that's what happens, So yeah, we joking. There's 9 years between us, but 1
Yes.
month a year. It's 10
It's
years.
10. And I
she
always
used to
make
laugh.
fun of you.
Chelsea used to make fun of me. I'm like, no, this is nothing to make fun of me about. I'm proud of this.
Yeah, you're
this is what
proud.
people dream of. Men dream of, anyways. Maybe not their wives. Their wives don't. They don't grow up in high school and college going, I can't wait to meet a guy 10, 15 years older than me. But thankfully, my wife didn't feel that way, or at least I hoodwinked her into it. I'm great at convincing her to do things she doesn't want to do. But hey, in the end, partnership, love, family, that's what it's all about. Making the most of your life experiences. So again, we thank you and appreciate having you join us on our first ever podcast. This again is the Paul Gray Podcast, and we're going to have some incredible guests coming up. None of them are going to be quite as good as this one, but they're going to be worth watching. So again, thank you for your time and have a great day.